Hello, everyone. It is good to be back with you today. I'm glad that you're watching this video. This week, we are going to be talking about a passage from Acts 2. And it's this really cool passage of some of the earliest Christians. And they are gathered together and they are sharing everything that they have. So it's a cool story, and I'm going to have us read it twice. This first one, I'm reading from a version of the Bible called the New Revised Standard Version, and we're going to do a little activity stuff during it. The second time, we're going to read from this Spark Story Bible. So this first time, I just invite you to listen and hear these words. The second time, we'll look more at the pictures. So, all right. This is Acts 2, starting in verse 42. They, talking about some early Christians, devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and fellowship, to breaking bread and the prayers. So they are learning together, and they're eating together, and they're praying together. So that's three things they're doing together already. All came upon everyone, which means people were amazed because of the many wonders and signs that were being done by the apostles. And all who believed were together and had all things in common. What I want us to do for the rest of this reading is, I know we're not together, so this may be hard, but when you hear the characters in the story doing something, like an action, I want you to raise your hand and tell us what you think they're doing. So each time there's something, I'm going to stop and talk about it briefly. And so hopefully we stop at the same time. So you may find an action that I didn't even recognize. So bear with it. But when you hear an action, raise your hand and say what you think it is, and I'll talk about it briefly. So they would sell their possessions and goods. First one right there. They sold their possessions. These people would give up all the things that they have. Why? Let's go to the next part. They would sell their possession and goods and distribute the proceeds to all as any had need. So they would sell what was theirs so that they could give to others. It was really selfless and kind, and they shared really well. Day by day, as they spent much time together in the temple, so they're sharing, they're selling their things and giving to those who need it, and now they're spending time together in the temple. So as they did that, they broke bread at home. We talked about that. That means they're eating together and they're remembering Jesus in the process. They broke bread at home and ate their food with glad and generous hearts. So they ate together, and they did it with gladness. They were happy, and they praised God together. So let's read this next part. I just gave a little spoiler. So as they were doing this, as they were eating together, spending time together in the temple, they were praising God and having the goodwill of all people. So again, they looked out not just for themselves, but for everyone. That was the important thing, was everyone. And day by day, the Lord added to their number those who were being saved. So this is saying more and more people were coming to this community of Christians because they were doing awesome things, right? Like they're sharing, they're selling their things, they're giving to those in need. And that's something that people like to be a part of. So with our faith, us sharing, us helping out other people, that's something that other people want to be a part of too. So I'm going to read out of the Spark Story Bible now, and this one is a little more, it's less confusing. This had a lot of things. This one's a little less confusing, and what I want you to listen for is listen for how much they're sharing, because it's really cool to see. So this is the same story. It's page 504 If you have one of these and you want to follow along, feel free to pause it. Some of the early believers were great at sharing. They shared their food and their clothes. They shared their money and their homes. They were so generous. No one was poor or needy because others gave without holding anything back. Together they saw many miracles and wonders. They met in the temple and they met in their homes. They talked about Jesus and they thanked God for blessing them. Then something amazing happened. When other people saw how happy these first believers were and how much they were sharing all they had and talking about Jesus, they believed too. They became Christian and they shared their food and their clothes, their money and their homes. They became one big family. And their church family grew and grew and grew. So look at this picture. You can see some of the ways that they're sharing. What do you recognize? What are some ways? I'll give you just like 10 seconds to yell it out, even though I won't be able to hear you. What do you see that they're sharing? Yeah, they're sharing their food here. They're helping each other out who needs food. They're sharing their money. Maybe they got this from selling their possessions. And look how happy everybody is. They're sharing all of their places. This person right here on the edge may be sharing their home with someone else. Really, they were just good at sharing. And that's the challenge for this week for you, is to share something with someone. It could be a sibling, it could be a parent, it could be a friend if you're able to do that somehow virtually. Share something. Be kind to somebody, because that's what the earliest Christians did. And that's really cool to me. So let's try to be like them this week. Thanks for being here and hanging out with me. Down below in the comments for parents are some discussion questions and a couple kind of drawing activity ideas. But kids, I invite you to ask them what those are. They're good responses to this, but this week especially, make sure you share somehow and be kind to someone somehow. I will see you all this Sunday.